It's almost like we have this theme going on with all this stuff. But now Dave mentioned some things that tease up what I'm about to talk about here. I was given just a little slot of time. What I hope to be able to do is just kind of hand over some tools that'll allow you to think about yourself individually in terms of some of the things that you might need to figure out how to overcome that may or may not be limiting you. I think while we're all very highly evolved, special people who are all focused on growth and clearly share the desire for growth, the desire to get beyond our own constraints or overcome our own limitations is often far greater than our ability to actually do so. So what I hope to give you today is just a little bit more of a look into yourself and maybe some tools that you can carry with you forward that might help you overcome some of the things that could be keeping you from getting where you'd like to go. So first of all, who here would call themselves a master storyteller? You're all selling yourselves short. Every second of every minute of every hour of every day, your mind is forming perceptions through your ability to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch the world around you. It forms these perceptions by taking in new and unknown information all the time and making sense of it using old and known information. And it does it that fast. It's doing it every single second of every single day. To illustrate how quickly this works, I want to ask you all to imagine a scene. It can be anywhere you like. The only thing I want you to imagine in this scene happening is one person walking up to another person and hugging them. Now in your paper in front of you and pen, I would like you to write down, fill in the details of that scene that you saw in your mind, including why in the scene one person hugged the other person. All right. Everybody here probably has a slightly different scene, right? Because we all have our own set of experiences to draw from. I gave you this much information, but you were able to fill it in with details being a listener to your brain that is really, really good at coming up with stories. Let me ask you one more question. How many of you people had a thought that you didn't actually write down because you didn't like it, so you went to something else? How many people skipped over their initial thought and then went to something else? All right. So your brain was telling you a story, but you were like, I don't like that story. I'm going to do a different story. Right? That's very few of you. Hopefully by the end of this, everybody will raise their hand if I ask this question, or hopefully with a little practice with some of the tools that maybe I'm about to give you, the insight I'm about to give you, you can learn how to do this, because that's exactly what we need to get really, really good at if we're going to overcome some of our biases and our tendencies and the things that keep us from becoming our best selves, from peak performing, from growing and achieving the growth that we want. A lot just happened in that little 60-second window. Can you see those two little dots up there? Right? I just said one person walks up to another and hugs them, and your brain went and started making this story. And it had a tiny bit of information. It's your brain's job. It's really good at doing this. Maybe too good. Here's why. We'll call that 2 bits of information, right? Can you see 2 little dots up there? Everybody see 2 little dots? Okay, that's 200 bits of information. It's 2,000 bits of information. It's 20,000 bits of information. 40,000, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000, on and on and on and on and on. And we're counting up. Each one of those little dots is 1 bit of information. We're counting. Did the M go there yet? Anybody see an M yet? No? No M yet? So the little tiny block is 1. The bigger blocks are up. There's 1 million. That's 1 million has gone by in the time that it took to get to that M. And it's going to keep going, and it's going to stop eventually. And when it stops, we will have basically 2 million bits of information will have passed through here. So we're going to wait for it to stop. And when it stops, that'll be 2 million. Remember, each one of those little tiny dots is 1 bit. And each one of the squares that you can see the lines of is 100 bits. and each page is 20,000 bits. That was 2 million bits of information. Right? Add them all up. Now we're going to use our really powerful imaginations right now. We're going to turn each one of those little tiny 1-bit blocks into a 10-bit block. Right? Everybody do that? Wizards. You're all wizards. If we do that, then we can fit all 2 million bits onto this one slide. 2 million is roughly the equivalent of how much information is available to us at any given time. And according to cognitive science, this is about how much we're capable of taking in through our senses, right? Our thumbs and our faces and all of those things that Dave showed us. This is about how much we can, I won't say process because it's not exactly accurate. This is about how much we're able to use to actually form a perception, right? This is the big picture, or let's call it reality. This is our view of it at any given time. Now remember, we form perceptions by taking in new and unknown information and making sense of it using the old and unknown, or old and known, I'm sorry. So in other words, our brains are literally reliving our pasts in an effort to predict the future, minute by minute. When we have a new experience, we compare it to stories we keep in a mental library of sorts, asking which story from our library best matches the current situation. And then and only then can we assign meaning to it, which leads to feelings and ultimately some sort of behavior and some sort of action. We do this all day, every day. That's why we're so good at it. And sometimes to a fault, because the stories we make up don't always lead to feelings that lead to actions that are actually in our best interests. Right? Can you think of a time when you performed an action based on a story you made up in your mind that you later found out wasn't true? Everybody's hand should go up, right? You know, right? It would be nice to be able to avoid these instances. The problem is that over time, we form our own personal map of reality. And that leads to patterns in the meaning we assign to certain feelings or sensations. That those lead to patterns in our behavior, some of which can be limiting, even self-destructive. It's important to understand that there's a difference between a sensation and the meaning of that sensation that we assign to it. Of course, the stories we tell ourselves can also lead to positive outcomes. It's really all about the story that we write in our minds. So my son Ethan, who just turned 4 in November, he's quite the storyteller, as you can imagine. He conjured up a real humdinger yesterday. As a matter of fact, my wife's sister was over at the house with her daughter, and they were playing together. And Erilyn is her name, and Ethan both had stuffed little puppy dogs. One of them is an older stuffed puppy dog that Ethan has had for a while, and another one is a new one that he got for Christmas, named Hizzer. And they were playing with the puppy dog, and they were both loving the puppy dogs, and they were just doting on them and taking really good care of them, and then it became time to go. Now, Ethan tells himself stories all the time about why he shouldn't share his toys with anyone and why he should keep his toys and never get rid of any of them. And this little older puppy dog named Mino is no exception. So time came to go, and Erilyn wanted to take the dog with her. And of course, everyone's response, including Ethan's, immediately was, "No, that's my toy. That's Ethan's toy. It's got to stay here." And of course, Erilyn tells herself stories that every toy, anywhere, is her toy. And eventually what happened is Erilyn's mom is trying to explain to her why that is Ethan's toy and she can't have it. She's sobbing and she's pleading. And meanwhile, I've learned that Ethan was just pacing around the room. Just pacing around the room, back and forth, while Erilyn's mom is trying to explain to her. Danica noticed him until eventually he just stopped. And he walked over to Erilyn and he said, "Erilyn, I have Hizzer now. You can have Mino and take him home with you." In that moment, my 4-year-old son did a beautiful thing. He committed an unselfish act, which was very uncharacteristic of a boy who just turned 4 and is pretty sure that all of his toys should remain his toys and only his toys for all time. So it was remarkable. The most beautiful part was that he was inspired by an improvisational bedtime story that Danica told him weeks ago about a fairy who gave her shoes to another fairy who didn't have anything. He chose a different story in the moment than the one he had already told himself many, 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 many times about that puppy.